Alright, I'm Matthew Ptowski.
I'm Tyler Austin.
And we're doing professional sports, and we're part of the Rams group, Chapter 10.
To start out, for the major leagues, for the league revenue, the majority of league revenue comes from your national TV contracts, radio contracts, so your CBS, Fox Sports, ABC, NBC, all those contracts are what provide the majority of any kind of revenue for the NFL, Major League Baseball during the playoffs, postseason, any kind of that kind of deal. You do league-wide licensing, which would be any kind of merchandise. So when you see this product is licensed of Major League property, you have the jerseys, the ball caps, any of that, or even for the NFL. Those are all property rights that belong to the respective leagues. You have your league-wide sponsorship programs, which would obviously be your segments, so your Sprite Slam Cam for the NBA. If it's your Snickers, I don't know, replay, any kind of sponsorship deal for that specific league. Now, within that, they have team-specific sponsors, so while stadiums have their own sponsorship name rights, that doesn't contribute to the league, that contributes to the specific team income, but for the league, they do have their specific sponsorships as well. And then you've also got the franchise free agency strategy. That was implemented in 1990, and because sometimes league revenue wasn't shared equally as is tried to today. In 1990, certain franchises proposed a strategy that if the league revenue wasn't shared in a way that they could spend their revenue to cover their costs for their specific teams, they would actually relocate to a different city. And while the leagues bargain with certain cities and towns for the ability to have a team in that said city, Major League Baseball actually is exempt from that rule because they don't have any antitrust laws. So instead of the free agency franchise strategy, what would happen is league owners would actually, or team owners would bargain with the towns and actually threaten the towns to either move the city or move the stadium from said city.
Just a little bit of background on the major leagues. The professional sport industry is a major international business, grossing billions of dollars each year. And in North America, the breakdown basically goes baseball, there's Major League Baseball, and their minor league affiliates, and then there's minor league independents. In basketball, there's the NBA, the D-League, and then for women's basketball, there's the WNBA and some minor leagues for those also. And then for football, we have the NFL, the minor leagues outdoor, and the minor leagues indoor, and there's the Women's Football League. For hockey, we have the NHL and the minor leagues and roller hockey. For soccer, we have the MLS, and then an outdoor minor league and indoor minor league. And then other sports include men's lacrosse, which has an outdoor and indoor league, and team tennis and NASCAR teams. And numerous professional leagues also operate throughout South America, Europe, the Middle East, Asia, Australia, and Africa. And around the world, the sports are a little bit different. There's rugby, cricket, but there's also sports we do here like baseball, basketball, and American football. And then there's soccer, hockey, volleyball, and Australian rules football. Countless professional sports events are also staged around the world, but they're individual sports like action sports, boxing, fencing, figure skating, golf, tennis, racquetball, running, and track and field. And individual sports are usually based around a tour, like the Sprint Cup Series or the PGA Tour. And then a little background on ownership. Franchise ownership is historically a hobby for the wealthy, the very, very wealthy. And many teams used to be operated as a mom and pop business, which is no longer true today because team ownership has become a revenue-driven proposition. So people are trying to make money and not be nice. Owning a sports franchise requires a lot of capital, a lot of money, but having the financial capacity isn't enough anymore. You have to have permission to own a sports franchise, and you must be granted ownership, but you must be granted entrance by the ownership committee of the league, in which one seeks team ownership. And then in sports, the commissioner is in North American professional sports leagues, league constitution and bylaws set forth commissioner powers, and the players' associations have used collective bargaining to limit the commissioner's powers. And commissioners possess discretionary powers in the following areas: approval of player contracts, resolution of disputes between players and clubs, resolution of disputes between clubs, and rulemaking authority. And then labor labor relations did not play a major role in professional sports until the late 1960s, but have been a dominant force in recent times. By the late 1970s, the professional sports industry has began its transformation to a more traditional business model like it is today. And currently, players are unionized in the following leagues: Arena Football, NLL, AHL, ECHL, MLB, MLS, NBA, NFL, NHL, and WNBA.
One of the biggest issues facing any professional league would be legal issues between contracts, antitrust laws, labor and intellectual property. There are a lot of legal issues facing. One of the most recent ones would be with the NHL. Ilya Kovalchuk signed a 17-year contract for $102 million with the New Jersey Devils. However, that was found in violation of the collective bargaining agreement. It violated multiple antitrust laws. An arbiter found that it violated multiple NHL laws. So that contract was full and void. With antitrust laws, multiple rules are set into place, such as drafts, reserve systems, salary caps, free agent restrictions, and free agent compensation. And that's all for competitive balance. It's for teams in smaller markets. For example, in baseball, the Oakland A's, with what Billy Beane did in Moneyball. These are part of the antitrust laws, these strategies here, to make that competitive balance more spread throughout leagues.
Recently, all leagues have been going through globalization, which is trying to take our sports in North America and spread them out throughout the world. And the MLB has expanded to Japan, Taiwan, and China, trying to make their presence felt. And the NFL used to have NFL Europa, which is no longer here, and now they have games in London every year. And the NBA is a very international organization. They have places all over the world, like in China and India, and they've spent the last 2 decades building the sport of basketball and trying to make the league in China. And over 300 million people in China play basketball, so they've really increased participation there, and the fans go crazy for basketball over there. And 20% of revenue generated from foreign markets. The NBA generates 20% of their revenue from foreign markets, so they're really spreading out all over the world.
There are 2 different models of infrastructure between professional sport leagues. The first is the single entity model. It's really rare, and of the 5 major professional sport leagues, only MLS uses it. However, in the same regards, MLS is kind of a hybrid, and that's because in the Frazier versus MLS case in 2002, the players of the MLS made a lawsuit against the MLS saying that they're only using the single entity model to depress the contract value of each player. So the courts ruled in favor of the MLS, but also said they were a hybrid league. The owners invest in the league, not individual teams, so they actually invest into the MLS and they get awarded a franchise, and it avoids financial and antitrust liabilities.
And then there's self-governance. It follows the lead of the National League in 1876. And this is opposed to the corporate governance model, which owners act as a board of directors and the commissioner is the CEO. But in the self-governance, commissioner is not under direct control of the owners and possesses decision-making power, disciplinary power, and dispute resolution power.
A major issue facing professional leagues are race and gender. 2003 was a landmark year for both NBA and MLB. They welcomed minority owners. Bob Johnson was an owner of the Charlotte Bobcats, and Artie Moranu became an owner of the Los Angeles Angels. 2009 was the first time that all professional sport leagues of the 5 major sports received an A on their racial and gender report cards. And then Shropshire has done research on this. He's a 4-step plan. He wants athletes to be less focused on being an athlete, more involved in the league aspect. The current athletes are standing against racism. There needs to be league-wide action to get rid of racism and increase gender equality, and then to continue civil rights activism and legal action.
And how this chapter relates to my career implications. My major career goal is to work for a professional sports team in the major 4 sports leagues, and after reading this chapter and working on the presentation, I think I have a better understanding of what it takes and what I have to do to be in the professional sports industry.
For myself, I'm a journalism major. I want to be a sports journalist. So understanding the professional sport leagues, how they work, and being able to communicate that effectively to other people who may not understand exactly how the leagues function is very important, and I feel like I've definitely done that by looking at this chapter and recapping this chapter.
And thank you.